Hi, my name's Nikki. I'm the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to the channel. Today is a book haul that I have had in the works since early March. I've been slowly accumulating all of these titles and I can't wait to show them to you. I've got some cool stuff in here. Up until last year, I was very careful about bringing books in unless I had read them first and verified that yes, they are a 4 or 5-star read. I'd really like to have them in my collection. Other than bargain stuff that I get from Book Outlet, I never really brought in a lot of titles that I was just interested in reading. But this year I decided to have a little more fun with it. So I have an ongoing list of books that are high on my TBR that I'd really like to get to, and I've started buying a few of them. It's a gamble because I know if I don't like them, then I'm stuck having spent the money on them, but I'm really tired of my reading life being at the mercy of what's available next at my library. I'd really like to be able to just go to my collection and pick out the next book that I want to read because I already have it. It also increases the chances that I'll actually read them because they're staring me in the face every day. But to that end, I have a bunch of books here that I have not read yet that I'm really excited to get to, and I'm thrilled that I have them in my collection. So we'll go in alphabetical order by author's last name because that's sufficiently random for you, but organized enough for my sensibilities. First up, a trade paper copy of The Coward by Stephen Arion. I don't know anything about this book really, but the title I find really intriguing. Because usually fantasy books with a similar vibe have to do with someone trying to prove how tough they are, but the idea that someone goes into it already labeled a coward, I want to know. It's a very good title, very good lead-in, and I'm pretty sure the second book is already out. And I am way behind the times on picking this one up, but hopefully I'll be able to soon. Per my Read Burn Hoard project a couple of months ago, I ordered The Order of the Deacons. It's 3 books in one set by Philippa Ballantyne, starting with Geist. I'll link that video if you're interested in knowing why this is such a weird purchase for me. Basically, I figured if I were going to hang on to a book that I'm not sure I even like, because I did make it halfway through the first book before putting it down, and I may as well be looking at a nice copy. And so I love these little omnibuses. I bet you this is a book club edition because of the size. Memories Legion by James S.A. Corey. This is a compilation of all of the short stories from The Expanse. And The Expanse is one of the few that I liked enough that I actually went and picked up all of the short stories. And I have to say, they enhanced the overall story significantly. And I'll give the show kudos. They included a lot of the short stories in their plot structure for that, and I thought, yep, that needed to be there. It really added a lot to it. So if you're just diving into Expanse, I highly recommend reading the short stories in tandem. I think all the books here have value, but the ones that stood out to me the most are The Drive. I thought that was an excellent introduction to the technology of this particular universe, if you will. And then The Churn. I don't want to give away spoilers, but that one's a really important one, I think, to really get to know one of the characters at like a base level. And incidentally, I was left a little meh about the final book in the series, but after getting this and then doing research for an upcoming releases video that posted a couple weeks ago, I discovered that there's a novella that was published after the final book called Sins of Our Fathers that I have not read yet. And I am really hoping that that fills in the gap and adds everything that I needed the ending to have. So it's a lot of expectations on a tiny short story, but we'll see how it goes. Julie Chernita's The Mirage. It's book 2 in the Web Shifters series. This is a trilogy a long time in the making. It continues the story of Essen, who we first met in Beholder's Eye, which I love the character. I love that story. For some reason, I think I'm having a little bit of a hard time getting into these ones, maybe because it's so far after the fact, but she's amazing at alien biology, really good creature creation, fun situational humor. I absolutely hate the newer covers. The old ones were done by Louise Royaux, and these new ones I'm just like, meh, not very appealing. But I put this one down with about 75% to go because I got busy with other things, but I need to get back to it and continue because the third book has since come out. I do love the spine though. The series is known for the blue blob alien. Favorite author, just haven't been back around to read it again for a while. And then a couple of Stephen Erickson. The Crippled God, I accidentally got the wrong copy for Christmas, kind of the shorter mass market paperback, and I needed the trade paper to match the rest of the set, so finally got that. And then Book Outlet had God Is Not Willing, and because I'm enjoying the series so much and being a completionist with it and reading everything in the Malazan world in order, I definitely will want to get to this at some point. I picked up Engines of Empire by R.S. Ford. I really don't know much about this one either. I really haven't seen a lot of reviews for it, but I'm okay with that. The basic premise interests me, and it's a new release as of, I think, January, and interested in this one eventually as well. I do think it's more essential for me to pick up hardcovers in a timely manner before they go out of print. Did I really need a trade paper that I could probably get a hold of for the next couple of years? Probably not, but it's high enough on my TBR that I felt justified in picking it up. I feel justified in picking up all of these, because with books I can always find a justification. This one didn't take a lot of convincing. The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne, this gorgeous hardcover copy. I finished the first book earlier in the year, and I just needed a little bit of a break. It's kind of an intense read, so I've been reading other things, but I am hoping to pick this up within the next month or two. Absolutely beautiful book. I love how solid the hardcover is. In the interest of continuing to curate my collection of Robin Hobb titles, I picked up Blood of Dragons. I think it's book 4. I had ordered a couple of the others in the series, but they both came as book club editions, even though I emailed asking them to verify that they were the full size, but whatever. But then I was watching someone else's video and saw on their shelves a beautiful copy of Dragon Keeper that is more in the line with this type of cover as opposed to the hideous ones that they released in the US. And I'm like, where are those? I didn't realize those existed. So luckily, this one is the only one with the same cover in both areas, but I'm like hounding the UK trying to find those nicer hardcovers that I actually like better, which is a shame because I've already got 2 of the other ones, and so now I'm replacing ones that I've already replaced. But it's Robin Hobb. She's my all-time favorite, so even though it like grates on my nerves to have to reorder books, it's worth it for her. I bought Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I really don't know anything about the author. I haven't read anything by him, but for someone who feels like sometimes the lone voice in appreciating urban fantasy lately, I figure a book that's a high fantasy but has a lot of urban fantasy elements, like this is right up my alley theoretically. So I'm already primed to like books about vampires, and especially ones that are less romantic vampires and more like badass vampires. I think I can handle that. My biggest draw to this was how big of a clunky, gorgeous book this was. I admit this was a week buy. It wasn't super high up on my priority, but now that I've got it in my hands and I see how pretty of a copy it is, yeah, I'll probably read this sooner than later. I'll let you know how it compares to the dozens of urban fantasy stuff that I've read. But oddly, I am expecting more of a high fantasy feel than an urban fantasy vibe. A very big distinction in my brain, so we'll see how this one goes. A lot of what I've been picking up are new releases or series that BookTube just won't stop talking about, and so I finally am like, all right, I will read them. Because I've discovered I'm very susceptible to BookTube hype, and I'm trying to balance that with wanting to read a lot of the backlist stuff that I have, but, you know, every now and then I break down and I buy the things. So here I have the Grace of Kings series. If you're like me, you're probably really, really sick of hearing about them, but I'm hoping that now that I have these gorgeous copies to join the masses in talking about how great they are. And hopefully I like them, because these were not cheap. That is the pitfall of joining the bandwagon well after the fact, because then, like, to get the nice hardcovers of the first books, you have to really go out of your way, which I did. But luckily the books 2 and 3 were still in production, and I think book 4 is out soon, so I'll be picking a copy of that as well. Yes, I'm very pleased with myself for this one. I can't wait to read it, and hopefully I enjoy it as much as most others have. And I'm running out of room. You may remember in a couple of hauls ago, maybe even the last one, I picked up Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. Not only is this one of my all-time favorite series, Gentlemen Bastards, but this book made my very, very conservative list of all-time favorite fantasy books ever. Ever. Of like the 1,600 that I've read, there's only 30 titles on that list. This is one of them. Now, because I got this, it prompted me to try to find the rest in the series, which I did. So I found the original hardcover of Lies of Locke Lamora, which I've seen around, but I really don't like this cover compared to some of the newer ones. I think they're a lot better. But because this is the original hardcover and it matches, I finally picked one up. Wish I had done it years ago. And then I also have a copy of the third book. And so to finally be able to say I have a beautiful hardcover set of the original hardcovers, yee, so excited. And this one's wrapped in saran wrap, but I will probably leave it in there. Just very excited about that. And then from the publisher, I got In the Shadow of Lightning by Brian McClellan from Tor. Very grateful for this. I have already read the book and enjoyed it quite a bit. I think I gave it a lot of concessions because of how much I love Powder Mage. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend this being your first introduction to McClellan's work, but for me, it worked okay. I'm kind of holding judgment to see what he does with the characters and the conflicts in the second book, because he really did do a good job building everything up to that point. But we shall see. But getting a book from a publisher is like everything. So cool. And then a book outlet purchase, The Fury of Demons by Brian Naslund. I did a live show on the Bookish Chaz's channel. I'll link that, but someone in the comments, after hearing us talk about dragon books, recommended this series, and I had already found the first two from Book Outlet, and so upon that recommendation, I went ahead and bought the third one. I figured, may as well. If I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna go in with both feet. But evidently this is a really good dragon series. You wouldn't know it by this atrocious cover. And the first two I wouldn't say really sold it to me very much either, which is probably why I've been kind of passing over reading it. But yeah, now it's on my radar. Hopefully it's good. Okay, I did a thing, and this is the purchase I am probably most excited about, but also most sheepish about. So if I haven't read the books in a series that's really popular on BookTube, it would probably serve me well to at least try the first one before I invest in the whole series, but this is what happened. This is the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio, and I resisted this one. Oh my gosh, I resisted this one for so long. I'm like, just because everybody on BookTube says it's amazing, I'm not gonna read it. I'm not doing it. I'm doing it. And what finally tipped it over for me is one of my patrons described it as kind of the similar writing style as Name of the Wind, but set in space. I'm like, that's really all I need to know. I'm getting the vibes of very like rich high fantasy meets rich sci-fi, and so the mashup is very appealing to me. So I don't know anything about the series. I probably should have read the first book before I hunted down the whole thing, but I'm still very pleased with myself for this one, and I cannot wait to start the series now and add my voice to the many who are already talking about it and have been way ahead of the curve that I'm on. And I forgot to show you the covers. Ta-da! Ta-da! Now granted, ta-da! These are beautiful hardcovers, but I don't find the actual cover art incredibly appealing, but the hardcovers themselves are really chunky and beautiful. And I've already been flashing these on a couple of wrap-up videos, but I picked up Collapsing Empire and Consuming Fire by John Scalzi. I picked these up before I read them, but I have since devoured both, which, to have read 2 books before I've even showed them in the haul, is incredibly good turnover for me. I'm hoping to do more of that. But the first book, first of all, people have been telling me how amazing the series is, and the first book didn't quite convince me. It was about a 3-star read. I was like, I liked it. I didn't love it. But then, book 2, oh my gosh, book 2. I see why people love the series. In fact, I had to look up what I rated the first one, because I'm like, did I really rate it that low? Was the second one really that much better? And what it did was accumulate the story to a place that I found really satisfying. He relaxed with some of the characters because I think they were a little overdone in the first book, and had some really cool discoveries along the way, and the pacing was on point. I loved this book. I haven't had that like payoff from a sci-fi being such an absorbing read in a really long time, and I'm super happy that this one fit the bill. Well, I only have the third one to go, which I already owned, and can't wait to read them and add them to the collection. Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This one, from what I gather, it's a very unconventionally told story, and I like that. I like a fresh take on things. And I was already interested in the premise. I almost picked this one up as an advanced e-read copy, but decided to wait, and now I'm just biding my time because I have one in my hands, so I don't need to rush to get to it. But this is one of the new releases this year that I am looking at hopefully sooner than later. I picked up a copy of Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I really don't see myself not liking this, but every time I say that I jinx myself, so maybe I take it back. But I'm really excited to get to this one. And as it happens, this is the pick for the next month and a half for my Patreon book club. So yay, we're going to start reading it soon. I'm really excited for it. This will be my first introduction to his work, but I swear, as soon as he hit my radar, I've started to see so many other titles by him that I'm really interested in. I want to try Shadow of the Apt. I want to try a few of his short stories. There's a couple of random standalones that look interesting. And of course his sci-fi stuff. I love that this author does a little bit of everything. It means that he loves the genre of spec fic. And he strikes me as having a very Sanderson quality ethic of writing, where he just has all these stories he needs to get out, so he's really quick at producing them. I can't wait. Shadow Throne by Django Wexler. I recently finished the first book in the series and already own books 3, 4, and 5 in hardcover. This one was the only one that I was missing. And fortunately, I really liked the first book and I'm excited to continue. Just in chatting about it, I missed a buddy read for this one, and so the people who already read it ahead of me are saying it's a lot more politically driven, which is something that I usually really like in books. It's kind of strange though, because in this specific case, the draw for me was the military aspect and the kind of like training. But if we're switching gears, like I can get aboard a politically driven novel. Very excited. And last but not least, Traitors Not by Johnny Wirtz. I picked this one up at Book Outlet, relatively inexpensive. I thought I had the first 2 books in hardcover, the original hardcovers with Johnny Wirtz original art, but as it turns out, I have just the first one, and the second one is in a weird paperback, and I don't own the third one at all. But I thought, well, if I get into this series eventually, I'll really kick myself for not picking up a $10 copy of the 4th book, so I did it. Now, I do realize that The War of Light and Shadow is something that's being talked about a lot on BookTube, but for some reason I'm just not as excited to pick it up anytime soon as everybody else. I've heard for years it's a really dense read, and I've got a whole bunch of those going right now. But I've been moderating fantasy buddy reads on Goodreads for several years now, and a couple people did a buddy read through this entire series, and Johnny Wirtz was kind enough to come on and answer a whole bunch of questions for everyone. And obviously I haven't read through it because I haven't read the series and I don't like spoilers, but she was very thorough in answering a lot of the detailed questions involved in the series. So if you're interested in that, I'll link the Q&A below. Several years ago, I just posted a random question on Goodreads asking if her Daughter of the Empire series would get turned into an audiobook at some point, and she actually responded back to me. So this is one of the most community-involved authors I have ever come across, and she is so gracious and so excited to talk about her work with everybody that I have nothing but high praise for her. So I would like to try her stuff at some point. I just need to unbury myself a little bit more beforehand. Ta-da! So there's my haul. I am so excited. I can't tell you how many years it has been since I've allowed myself to buy books that I haven't read yet. I feel like a kid in a candy store, or I feel like getting to go to Media Play when I was 13 years old, and it was like 2 hours away, so it was an event to go there and find all the new titles and bring them home. I'm swimming in abundance now, and purchases like this are making it a lot easier to let go of some of the older stuff that I've been hoarding for years that just doesn't interest me anymore. So this has been fun on all accounts. So I want to know what new books you've picked up lately, and also of everything you saw today, of all the things that have been going around BookTube, which one do you think I should pick up first? I'm kind of leaning towards Grace of Kings, but I keep getting pulled back and forth between a whole bunch of them. And now that I invested so much in that Christopher Rocchio series, even though it was lowest and I refused to pick it up, I might actually do that one first. I need to do a ramble video soon on how susceptible we are to suggestion when watching BookTube, and how to balance the excitement of the hype with all of the backlist titles that I'm sure we all have floating around. Because really, fear of missing out is a strong thing, and it is nice to be able to pick up a book with so many endorsements behind it and really feel confident that if that many people liked it, there's a good chance that I'll like it as well. So in a way, it's really nice to have a community that vets a lot of the good ones out from just the mediocre ones. But that being said, there are still so many books in my collection that I would like to vet myself because no one else is currently reading them. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this haul, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.